Welcome to the 2025 Asia Pacific Photography Awards Top 10 Judging of the Landscape category. This category is for photographs depicting the features of an area of land, landforms or man-made landscape features. The main focus of the image should be this landscape, but it may include other elements that give context to the story of the image. Entries may be traditional and/or interpretive. My name is Sarah McGregor and I will be your panel chair. We have a wonderful judging panel of Chris Anderson, Will Patino, Simone Jackson, Michelle Fay and Johan van Kaan, and we're going to start the category with a run through of the top 10 images. Can we have the first image, please? Thank you, judges. We have a score of 82. Johan, you want to challenge?
Yes.
Okay, go for it.
82. I gave this an 87. There's a very strong and potentially very obvious reference to how music is written. And the music of a landscape is how a landscape speaks to people is sometimes in their minds somehow musical. This is almost clinical in the reference to how notes might be presented on a piece of paper and the creative process to get to that. I'll probably be corrected on the number of lines that you are supposed to have when you're writing notes. However, the visual presentation creates that imagery rather than specifically being accurate. So I love the chaos that starts when things are being thought about and put together, and then the final clarity in presenting what's going to happen musically. The warm colors, the greens and the browns, give it a tone. Again, another musical reference. And I gave it 87 because I felt it was a strong graphical image that made me think about something beyond just a tractor in a field.
Thanks, Johan. Simone, do you want to comment on this one and your score, please?
Yeah, no trouble. I scored this 82, which I thought was a good solid silver merit. I didn't see any musical notes, but but at the same time, with what you're saying with the chaos with the lines and on the other paddocks, I can see what you're getting into there. Not so much the lines, but just the planning, I suppose, and reading that into it. I suppose what I struggled with this is, and this sounds corny, it looks a bit flat to me, and I know it's extremely flat. But it just, for me, to go up a little bit higher, I just wanted to have a little bit more contrast to see that. So that was probably my only thing that pulled me back to maybe possibly like an 84, but I don't think I could make a silver with merit.
Thanks, Simone. Chris Anderson.
So I was on 84. I was just the top of the silver range. And Simone, I think I was kind of staying in silver for the same reason that it just felt a little bit flat. I know, haha. There's dimensionality in it. You can see from the shadow of the tractor, but I know what you mean. Johann, yeah, there should be 5 lines if it was a staff room music, but still, I think I was kind of reaching towards an interpretation like that, and I didn't find it. And the way you've explained this, I'm in love with it. So the idea that this is a composer and they've they're on the fourth and beautiful draft of something that's been through revisions and chaos and madness to make something beautiful. I don't so much see notes because they haven't put them there yet, and that's totally okay. I'm sort of you've sold me with your description, Johan, and I'll be coming up to silver with merit.
Okay, back to you, Johan.
Fantastic. So within the chaos, there's disturbances that are sometimes dark and depressing and sometimes quite vibrant and lively, but at the same time, they're all muted. But when you come to the part where the musician is going to write the notes in, because they're still in preparation, this is not the actual music itself, it's the thought behind starting to write the music. And so that quarter of the image has the contrast that you're looking for. That quarter draws you into where you want to be. That's finishing off the story. Although, because the top line isn't complete, it's not finished. And that lays you to overlay your own sounds and feelings. And if you were a reader of music, you would look at this and go, but the music that I'm reading doesn't actually match into the scene that I'm seeing, perhaps. So this allows the photographer to place their own music into this. Yeah, I gave it an 87 for a very creative thought.
Thanks, Johan. Judges, please rescore. Thank you, and we have a silver with merit at 85. Congratulations to the photographer. Can we have the next image, please? Thank you, judges. We have an initial score of 85, which is a silver with merit, and we have an automatic challenge from Johan.
Yes, I must have had enough coffee. This is a wonderful exercise in sublime. To be truthful, it doesn't actually tell me a lot about a landscape. But what it does is it invokes a feeling of warm calm. And it does that with strength and balance. And then there's a little bit of interference that comes through in the kind of bluer areas of the image. It's just surreal. And I hate that word sublime, but this is as sublime as you can get. I love the granularity of it, the colored granularity. There's so much I love about the way this image has been presented to us and the forms it presents and the sense of calm that I get by staring into it. Yeah, I gave it a 93.
Thanks, Johan. Will, how do you feel about talking about this one?
Yeah, I scored this one a little bit lower. I gave it a 79. I think it's been executed really well from a technical standpoint. I do like that calm feeling we get when we look at it. I think for me, I didn't score it any higher just because when I judge something or give it a score, I'm also trying to look at it through the eyes of what I'd call like the average viewer, who else is going to be looking at this. And I personally, I don't feel a true connection with the subject matter. I feel like I enjoy the color contrast. I like the gradient from the corners leading us to the center there. The textures, everything's nice, but for me, I'm feeling a bit of a disconnect, and it's pleasing, but I just feel like I can't score it high. I feel like it's not quite taking me to another level where I've got that final little detail to enjoy, or just that little missing. I feel like there's one little piece missing here, and maybe it's just that either an emotional connection or just something that's slightly more relatable, not just for me, but what I think of, say, the average viewer looking at this one.
Thanks, Will. Chris Anderson, could we have a comment from you, please?
Yeah, for sure. So I scored this 83, so right in the middle of silver. I've listened to what you both said, and I kind of agree with everything both of you said. Johan, the feeling of calm. To me, this is it's like you're looking at a wave crashing on a beach, crashing really gently, and you're looking at it from a distance, and you're kind of zooming in to have a look, and all is well with the world. It's quiet. Like this is a quiet image to me, and even though it's got motion, it's still quiet. So that feels good. Will, I know what you mean about that. Almost a lack of connection because it feels a little bit distant. I think at first I was kind of looking for that cookie, the little point of difference to be a focal point. I think I don't need one of those more than that wave that's in there. And I think almost that disconnection is okay with me because it's distant. I did struggle a little bit with the graininess because I think it's there. It's real. It belongs. So that's okay. Probably what kept me where I am is something that appealed to you, Will, which is the kind of intense darkness in the bottom right, where that gradient's bringing you into the middle, but it felt a little heavy on the bottom right. And there are some details, little areas that snag my attention in the solid areas of the image that don't reward me when I get there. Like in the top left-hand corner, sort of about a third of the way in, there's like a little indentation, but it's natural. It's land. It's what it is. I'm actually really conflicted by this. I have so many feelings. So I'm on 83. I don't know that I'm going to be able to get all the way up into gold, Johan, but I really want to hear you talk about it some more.
Thanks, Chris. Back to you. Simone's got her hand up. Go, Simone.
Yeah, I had this at 84 and I thought it was a really solid, really solid silver, and I could maybe just jump into a very low merit, like an 85. But I did struggle just with the heaviness at the bottom a little bit. And I mean, it's a stunning image, don't get me wrong. And I wanted to see, I was a little bit like William, I wanted to see just a little bit more, even with that blue part, which I almost think that's what kind of draws me in more than anything. But it was the heaviness at the bottom, just a little bit too much, that I felt a bit too, downed on.
Thanks, Simone. Johan, back to you.
The people who said this was heavy, are they looking at the image with a black background or a grey background or a white background? Just asking.
I'm a grey.
Yeah.
I'm a
Go
gray.
to the black background. And then suddenly you see more in that area because it's not black down there. It's actually ever so slightly black with detail. I was looking up the meaning of sublime, and it says of high moral, aesthetic, intellectual, or spiritual value, noble or exalted. That one doesn't apply. There's another meaning which says inspiring deep veneration or uplifting emotion because of its beauty, nobility, grandeur, or immensity. And they forgot simplicity. Like I'm in awe of the color that I'm drawn through in this flash through the middle. I'm in awe of the balance within the photograph from darks to lights. The lights are controlled incredibly well so that they're not piercing our brain with pain. We look at them and we feel calm. And it's that whole sense of calm, which you can't really describe as a thing, but I am by giving it a 93.
Thanks, Johan. Judges, can we have you rescore, please? Thank you, judges. We have a silver with merit at 87. Congratulations to the photographer. Can we please have the next image? Thank you, judges. We have a Silver with Merit award at 85. Congratulations to the photographer. Can I have a comment from one of the judges, please? Simone, do you want to talk to this one?
Congratulations on your Silver with Merit. That's just absolutely fabulous. This image really it blew me away in regards to so many different travels. Like it was different journeys from different areas, and you could read so much into it and tell stories about where this is coming from, little side roads that someone's gone on their journey, and some massive big upheaval in their life as well. That's what I was reading into it. The color palette is absolutely beautiful. You can see so much detail in the different white areas. I actually don't know what I could say to actually improve on this image. It's just beautiful. Congratulations.
Thanks, Simone. Can we have the next image, please? Thank you, judges. We have an initial score of 87, which is a Silver with Merit. And we have 2 judges sitting in the gold range. Who would like to take that challenge?
One of us higher.
No, you're both the same. Do you want to go for it, Chris?
I'll have a crack. I'd
Okay,
love to challenge this.
go for it.
All right. So I'm on 91. I put this into gold. There, initial impact. This is this. It's not one of those images that bowls you over with contrast and smashes you over the face. It's so gentle. The color graduations in this are so subtle and so beautiful, and it looks gentle like a painting. The whole thing until you get to that blue tongue that's sweeping through, and that's where the contrast is, and that's where the excitement is, and that's where the texture is. If you look down the very bottom of the frame, you can see ripples in what I'm presuming is water. So the like technically to capture that level of detail and leave everything looking the way that it is incredible. I I just I'm kind of overwhelmed with how gentle this is, and there is there's such a sense of for something that's so gentle, there's such a sense of dynamism and movement, and well, obviously this thing coming out of the bottom of the frame. It's pushing out towards the top of the frame, and it looks like it's the way it's pushing those waves out, and it's that motion is repeated towards the top. There's so much motion in this. Even the that little kind of stream that's coming in on the right hand side, the fact that it's got that muted color in it means it's not distracting at all from the blue, but it is showing you this is part of a larger whole, which makes this even more remarkable because of the composition of the piece that we found. I guess I could sit with this for a while, and it's not one of those ones you sit with for a while and notice lots of little details. It's one of those ones where you sit with it for a while and you just enjoy the sense of calmness. So I think I'm really responding to it, and that's why I had it on 91.
Thanks, Chris. Michelle, I'll come back to you. Will, could I hear from you, please?
Yeah, no worries at all. Yeah, definitely a lovely image, and I do like that softness and gentleness that Chris mentioned there. I think I gave it a little bit lower on the scoring. What did I give it there? I gave it an 83. The main thing for me, I'm a little bit conflicted. The blue right in the dead center where it goes quite dark, just from a processing standpoint, it just seems like it's been pushed a little bit hard for my liking. I'd prefer that blue to be dialed back slightly like the rest of the river. And then I do love the texture up the top. It's like flames. You can see where everything's bleeding out. I think that's fantastic. But from a compositional standpoint, I feel like my eye is traveling too far from that basically a neon blue in the dead center. And then I want to look at the amazing textures at the top of the frame, but I just feel like I'm having to really kind of go up and down. I'm not harmoniously sitting in that centralized area because the bulk of the image is telling me to look there. We've got the blue, the way it's wrapping around. everything's kind of leading to that point, but then I just keep getting drawn up to those amazing textures up the top, but I don't like that distance I've got to travel. So I'd almost probably prefer this as a square crop without the top section, even though I do love the texture up there, but I just feel like it's potentially, for me, it's just drawing the eye upward a little too much. And yeah, like I said, just the blues in that dead center, it just feels like it's just pushed a little too far potentially.
Thanks, Will. Michelle, you were also in the gold range. Can we hear from you, please?
You sure can. So when I first saw this image, what I see is a little old person getting out of bed, and you've got your right arm at the back and the left arm at the front, and their heads up there, and that bright spot in their back is the bit that's hurting when you get up first thing in the morning. And it's just like, and the water going down through to their toes, and that's their aurora around them. And I could just sit with this for ages and just make up little stories of what is going on. But I'm still drawn, and it looks like a figure, a very ghost-like figure, but it still looks like a figure to me, and it completely draws me in. And I'm just bewitched by the whole thing, and I really, really, really enjoy it. And the more I sit with it, the more I like it. So yeah, see what you think. See what you think, whether you can see the person now and leaning over. That's what I saw, and that's what really connected me to this image.
Thanks, Michelle. Simone.
Yep, I cannot see what you see, Michelle, but I think that's the coolest thing, because we're all seeing something different as well. Yeah, I'm looking, my head keeps going sideways though, and I keep wondering what this whole image would have been like as a horizontal, because it's just, I'm looking at this bird with the beak coming through. That's what I'm seeing from the bottom. But I felt really silly because I actually missed the ripples of the waves and the texture of that river coming through. And obviously it must be a very windy spot too, it'd be a very small amount of water. Must be very, very shallow. And to see those ripples show that the wind shear would have been quite strong on that. So I completely missed that point. Yeah, I'm going to come up to a gold.
Thanks, Simone. Back
Oh,
to you.
sorry, I was 88.
Thank you. Back to you, Chris.
Okay, it sounds like there's a bit of support to bring this one up to gold, which is excellent. Will, some of the stuff that you raised, I think the blue center in the middle, like I can't say whether that's what it looks like in reality or whether it's been processed up that high. I feel if that is a choice, I feel like it's an okay one. Like, yes, it is, it's pushed, sorry, it appears to be so bold that it's, quite different to the blue errata, but that gives you that focal point in the middle. Your eye lands on that immediately. And then when you look at the other, just below that, towards the bottom of the image, there are areas of similar saturation kind of gently taking you up there as it grows into that. So whether that was as it was captured or a choice that was made in post-production, I think it's effective and it brings you to where you want to look. The kind of up and down motion that you talked about, I know what you mean, and I've been kind of imagining, could you crop this as a square? Yes, you would lose that beautiful texture at the top. I think you need it, and there's almost something tidal about the way your eye, if your eye is moving up and down in this, then to me that almost reinforces that sense of motion that you get. Like every element in here is demonstrating that sense of dynamism and motion, and if that's your eye travel, then I feel like the photographer's done their job because they've made you move around the image the way they wanted. So I'm on 91. Sounds like we've got some support. Let's bring this one home.
Thank you, judges. It was a great discussion. Can we have all judges rescore, please? Fantastic work. We have a gold award at 90. Congratulations to the photographer. Can we have the next image, please? Thank you, judges. We have a Silver with Merit award at 85. Congratulations to the photographer. Would somebody like to comment on this one? Will, do you want to comment on this?
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I think it's obviously a beautiful, striking image. We've got the contrast with the light, the dark and light, and then we have a color contrast, which is very pleasing with the warm hues. We've got the cool greens. Compositionally, everything's just flowing us to that main subject of the tree. I love that. We've got the hill progressively, large on the edge of the frame, and then it's just rolling us down and getting smaller. So I think from a technical standpoint, handling the light here and the gradient with the shadows and compositionally, I think it's just a very pleasing image. I would score it even higher again if it just had that final element to take in. Essentially we've just got farmland, nice tree, nice light. Everything's been done great, but to elevate it to an image that's just unforgettable, I think it would just need, for example, the flock of birds flying past to balance out the tree slightly, or maybe in the field some more recognizable cattle. I think there is some on the immediate ridge. There are a few sheep around, but if we had a few up on the ridge line, for example, where they're being illuminated by the light, then I would give it that, higher score. But I still think obviously it's a very lovely image.
Thank you so much. Can we have the next image, please? Thank you, judges. We have an initial score of 88, which is a Silver with Merit. And we have a challenge from Johan. You want to take this one?
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's interesting how the category of landscape has gone from the obvious to the unexplainable sometimes. The sense of embossing in this image is very strong. The pictorial that you could create in your head of what you're looking at is simple, powerful, three-dimensional, and almost quilted at the same time. It's very, very clever. The use of the white seam, the orange seam that runs around the top of the darkest area and is repeated in some of the background. The sense of a change in focus from the incredibly sharp foreground to the soft, apparently soft background. That little glow in the top middle, it's quite stunning and very, very provocative, particularly with the three-dimensionality of that embossed effect. I gave it a 92 for the clarity and the simplicity and the wonderful design.
Thanks, Johan. Will, can we hear from you, please?
Yeah, I've got to agree on the, that three-dimensionality of that lower portion, obviously in particular. I scored it lower mainly. I went 82, and although I love what we've got down the bottom portion, I'm just struggling personally with so much of the open space in the top. I like it there for the contrast, and it really heightens what we're looking at down the bottom, but I just feel like there's a little too much of essentially like a negative space. I personally think it might be more effective if we got rid of the top 25%. Then I feel it's similar to what I said on that previous aerial. I just feel like I'm being drawn down to a particular point for a reason, and I get there and it's amazing, but then I've just got a little too much weight in the top of the frame just pulling me up, and then obviously when I go up there, I'm kind of wandering around, so I go back to the bottom. I'd like to stay in that bottom zone, but I keep getting pulled up to the top area. The other beauty of it, as was rightly pointed out, the abstraction, and we're getting that a lot in landscape where things are being open to interpretation. I always like to put myself, not only, as I said earlier, through my own eyes and my own experiences in nature, but the general viewer who is looking at these photographs. And it's a fine line with abstract photography because it is meant to be abstract, but I think it helps for an image to be outstanding. We all insert our own emotions, our own experiences into what we're looking at. But sometimes with these aerials and these abstract imagery, I think that the everyday viewer will struggle to relate. And not that I necessarily should be judging it based on what other people might think, but I just can't help but, although I've had a lot of experience in landscape photography and I've seen such things with my own eyes, I can just imagine it's just, again, lacking that final little piece that someone might be able to latch onto and go, now I know what I'm looking at, and then they gain that true appreciation. So an example could be you have a flock of birds just standing on the sand there. So now once you see those, now you gain that appreciation for the scale. And okay, I'm looking at a beach, for example. That's just throwing one out there. So yeah, just that compositional standpoint and just that relatability for the everyday viewer is just why I notched it down. I'm happy to move up a little bit because, yeah, the more I really take it in, it's like, wow, they've really nailed that, particularly that lower section, and even the way the wave, that hump is kind of in framing everything. So it's definitely a beautiful image, but they're the reasons why I initially scored a little lower.
Thanks, Will. Simone, you are in support there with Johan. Can we hear from you, please?
Yeah, thank you. I put this at a 90. And I could have actually gone up a little bit higher actually, but with Johan, I suppose for the same reasons that I wanted to see a little bit more down the bottom, but obviously it's a landscape and below that may not have, not have been good for the photo. I also took Johan's advice with going into the, I went back to the black screen too, just to see what detail I could see down the bottom. I could see even more there too, which is just beautiful. I'm very happy with my gold. And I also wondered, there was just like a little tiny little highlight just on that dark area, just below that orange, that I'm just wondering why the photographer just didn't remove that tiny little specular light. Otherwise, and there's a tiny bit of almost like a blue at the very top right as well. But I despite those very, very minor things, I'm very happy with my gold.
Thanks, Simone. Back to you, Johan.
Great. So I listened to what Will was saying and how he was looking for, I'm going to call it an Easter egg, or some gift from the photographer, which allows us to relate something else to the image and give it a greater depth. And if you look closely at the grey area, there's a dotted line that runs down through whatever the grey is. In fact, there's several that become a slightly graphic element, and they just add a little bit of extra textural feel to that empty space. And it's almost like a random pencil line that's being drawn in that an artist might include in something to make us drift through that space. What I'm really enjoying is the top of the blue area has that slight golden glow, and that allows us to transition because the branches of what we're seeing on the base lead up to that, and it's like it's a reward for going there, some warmth and friendliness rather than just straight old grey. So I feel that there's been a fantastic use of colour, an incredibly good use of contrast as well, and the contrast between the top half and the bottom half. And they're almost like diametrically opposed. One has strong graphic detail and the other one really doesn't. And I think that's actually an intention in the presentation of the image as it is. So I feel that the photographer has been successful in presenting us with very minor distractions that allow us to explore further, but as a complete and total abstract. So I've given it a 92, and I'm very happy for it to be there, and I'd like to help it get there if I can by encouraging you to do the same.
Thanks, Johan. Can we have the judges rescore, please? And we have a gold award at 91. Congratulations to the photographer and thank you to the panel. That was excellent. Can we have the next image, please? Thank you, judges. We have an initial score of 84. Simone or Michelle, do you want to challenge this?
If Michelle doesn't want to, I will.
Yeah, go for it, Simone. I'm back out.
Are you sure? Okay. I've put this at a 87, right in the middle of a silver merit. I feel that it does need to go above a silver award for the point of, well, a few points really. This aurora image has really enveloped almost like a space-like quality of the way the photographers captured this. They have not overdone the saturation. They've kept it quite real. I love the way there's almost like an electric shock that's come down through and below those rocks with the slow exposure. That was obviously a very rough sea that night. If you are a little bit worried about that glow behind on the right rocks, like it's been brought like too much haloing there, quite often with an aurora that does kind of happen with other lighting situations before. So I don't feel that they've actually pulled that out too much, if that might be an issue with you all. But the way this aurora has been captured, looks like a KP9 maybe. It's a pretty high one with the way it's working like that. The foreground, everything's been done well. They haven't pulled out too much shadow in the foreground to make it too obvious. So that's why I think it needs to be above a silver.
Thanks, Simone. Chris Anderson, can we hear from you, please?
For sure. I was on 81 in the silver range, which it's probably a little bit tight. I should come up a little bit. This is an exceptional thing to be placed to photograph, and the thought process that's gone into having that central rock there is really smart. The Earth has provided. Thank you for making that aurora where it was, and so all those things are really beautiful. I think that Simone, I know what you said about the glow on the right being not to be concerned about, and I agree. I found a lot of the other sections where there's a little bit too much local contrast, where you can see some haloing around the rocks all the way along the left and in the bottom left-hand corner, and it's really subtle, but it's there, and that little highlight all the way around made me spend time on that to look at it instead of really enjoying the view that was here. So I think I probably would be hoping for just slightly tighter post-production to get that under control. I'll tell you what, if there's, from a compositional point of view, it's almost perfect. This is asking an awful lot of the aurora. I would just like the aurora to take a big step to its left, or for the photographer to take a small step to their right to center that rock so that it's right in the middle of that aurora. And then, at the moment, to me, the composition feels a little bit left of center. And I know we're dealing with the elements that we've been given, and so you can't always make choices like that. But for me, that would have elevated it higher. I think the main sticking point for me is that kind of over sharpening along the edges and the slight haloing. And if you can address that, Simone, then I'll move up.
Thanks, Chris. Will, you were quite close to the initial score there. Can we hear from you, please?
Yeah, so I gave it a silver. probably a little bit too much shadow detail for me personally, particularly in the foreground and on that cliff on the left-hand side. I just feel like it should be dialed back a touch. I don't mind the distant headlands being lighter as they're further away, but I just feel like the foreground could be a little darker. The imbalance as well with that lower right-hand corner being quite open in comparison to the whole left-hand side. So I just feel like there's a bit of a void down that lower right. And I'm just a bit conflicted with the horizon. The horizon placement, it's whenever you place, what the emphasis here is on the sky. The horizon's probably just below the halfway point. So naturally, I want to go straight to the sky. And then it has to be more of a conscious decision to float down and take in everything else. Personally, I would prefer if they tilted the camera down slightly. So now the horizon, if anything, would be above the halfway point. Therefore, the eye would naturally begin in the foreground, which is the biggest element, and that would create more depth because it's a diminishing perspective then. You're going to have a big element flowing down to something smaller, and then we just keep rolling through the frame. This horizon placement now is kind of telling me, look at the sky, and there's no natural flow once we get to the sky. Of course, we have the beams and the amazing halo going around the subject matter, which is incredible. But I personally, I just think if we could just angle down a touch, now we're going to roll through the frame, hit the C stack, and then take in the aurora and just enjoy being there. But just a few little compositional adjustments and some work on the tonality, and I think it would have really, I would have been able to score a little higher.
Thank you so much. Simone, back to you.
Yeah, I'm sad that Michelle can't talk. Yeah, okay, no, thank you. Thank you for pointing those out. Yeah, good point about the left rock. That could have been pulled, maybe dialed back a little bit too. I'm still I think just addressing that central area, obviously, like you said, Chris, the photographer probably couldn't go to the right because it would just be, going back down into the sea and the rocks. They'll probably use photo pills and place themselves where they know due south is going to be exactly where they're going to get the best that they can and trying to capture the beauty of the aurora. I've taken on note the little compositional details too that you've said. Despite those points, to a silver, it's an amazing award, but I do think to bring this image just up into a low silver with merit, I'd appreciate for all the points that it has brought in a little bit more of an ethereal feel of like the spacecraft coming down. So it's actually brought into like a little bit of the story, even though it's just a factual aurora. So I just urge you to come up just a few more points if you could, please.
Thanks, Simone. Will.
Yeah, I'm happy to move up to silver with merit, especially when I look at in relation to some of our previous scores and some of the images. I know from a technical standpoint, executing something like this is in a different league compared to, say, an aerial photograph. Obviously, there's challenges in both realms, but I think, yeah, probably putting a bit more emphasis on the technical part of this as well, not just the creative with the composition and everything. And I think, yeah, for sure, it could be bumped up, definitely.
Thank you. Can we have the judges rescore, please?
Sarah, just checking my score. It had been an 87, hadn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, judges. We have a silver with merit at 86. Congratulations to the photographer. Can we have the next image, please? Thank you, judges. We have an initial score of 84, which is a silver award. Will, do you want to challenge this one?
Yeah, I can do that. So I gave it, what did I give it? Sorry,
89.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. So I went a bit higher. Sorry, had the wrong screen up. This one for me, when I spoke of some of the other abstracts and essentially aerials, I was lacking that the composition and even something relatable. What I like about this one is compositionally, I like the placement of essentially the main focal point compared to that previous one where I felt like I was getting drawn right down the bottom of the frame. This one just seems to be positioned in that right point, and even in that top right-hand corner where you could say there's a bit of an open space, there's still some nice textures there, and there's even a line that's kind of cutting across, which just seems to keep the eye pushed back into the frame. I love the color contrast where we've got the cool greens, subtle blues, and then that striking orange. And from the relatability aspect, yes, it's still hard to grasp for the everyday viewer. Okay, what am I looking at necessarily? But the fact that the focal point looks strikingly like a small tree, I think that's enough for me to say, all right, this really ticks a lot of boxes. Aesthetically, highly pleasing, compositionally well thought out and balanced. And then from the viewpoint of, someone just looking at this and glancing at it, the fact that it is so similar to a nice miniature tree, I think there's enough there for me to say, look, this as far as the aerials go and looking down at the landscape, there's so many pleasing factors here. Also, I like the story of we've kind of got life just coming out here. It's almost like defying all the odds, just this growth occurring in a seemingly void space. So I kind of like the story we're being told there as well.
Thanks, Will. Simone, can we hear from you, please?
Yeah, I feel very like I was being real stingy. I put this at an 80, a silver, and I'm happy to come up. I suppose just the hazing and the graininess and the regularity of that I struggled with a bit, and that was probably to be honest, that's the only thing that was holding me back.
Thanks, Simone. Chris Anderson, can we hear from you, please?
Yeah, I'm on 84, so I had this right at the top end of silver. The graininess I think is inherent in what we've captured, so that didn't worry me so much. I did feel like there were areas where the grain had a lot more contrast than others, and there's almost a section sort of to the right of the center that felt a little flatter compared to everything else, and maybe that's important from a flow point of view. Look, I think I appreciate this from its graphic design approach. What actually kept me out of Silver with Merit is I just didn't personally feel a strong connection with this. So I can appreciate the choices that have been made. I can appreciate the color harmony, and the way that the composition's been handled, but it didn't grab me by the heart and make me want to love it more. So which is something that when we start getting up into Silver with Merit, that's something that I want. So that's pretty subjective. So we'll talk some more.
Yeah, that's a tricky one because that one of the first aerials we had of the Golden Wave, that didn't grab me by the heart. Like you said, it's incredibly subjective. I just feel like this just tells a little more of a story, slightly more relatable. And personally, I'm liking the colors that we have coming through. I'm a sucker for green, so I can't say much. And with the grittiness and the grain, I just feel like we've had that in pretty much most of the aerials. It just seems to be inherent in what's being photographed. So I think without the textures and grain, then it would actually look quite digitized and flat. So I like those subtle details that we're getting throughout the scene.
Thanks, Will. Can we have the judges rescore, please? Will, you need to enter your 89 again. Thank you, judges. We have a silver with merit at 86. Congratulations to the photographer. Can we have the next image, please? Thank you, judges. We have a score of 84, which is a silver award. Michelle, do you want to challenge? Or are you happy with that?
Yeah, no, I'll have a bit of a challenge.
Okay. Gonna,
I scored this 87, and as much as everyone that knows me well knows that I do not like cold, I really love this image. It just gave me such a sense of calm, but warm, which is really weird because it's in the ice. And I feel like I'm a polar bear and I've just woken up in my cave and I look out and the sun's coming in and I can go out and find some seal somewhere and have some breakfast. But it's just that whole, it's cold, but the blues are really nice and it's white and it makes you feel cold. But then you look out and the sun's doing its damnedest to try and get through. And you've got all the ice and coldness, but it's just, I just find it incredibly calming. And I think it's an image that I could sit with and look at and come up with so many stories of what is actually going on in the world outside of this cave. So yeah, so I gave it an 87 just because it really spoke to me with that calmness, but it felt warm even though it's totally not.
thanks, Michelle. Simone, can we hear from you, please?
Yeah, I gave this a good silver, which at 81, and I'm kind of happy with that. I think it's a beautiful job done. I really admire the detail of the sharpness from the foreground right through and across the ice as well. I think just a little bit. I just noticed the tilt of the horizon just was slightly down to the right, but maybe that just could be because of the mountains behind giving me doing a trick on my eyes, and just that little bit of a more of that glow up on the left hand side left of the sun was just pulling me out a little bit from that beautiful pastel feel. Yeah.
Thanks, Simone. Johan, you're in support of Michelle.
I wanted to go really high. I gave it an 86, and I wanted to go really high, but the more I explored it, the more I found things that kind of concerned me. So I gave it an 86 based on the feels, based on that sense of warm, cold that you talked about, Simone, and that wonderful sense of calm, actually. I didn't go higher because the edging around the ice didn't actually fit into how the focus fell through the photograph. And maybe the right-hand side, that dark chunk's maybe just a little too dark. But I did give it an 86. I took it into a silver because it affected me in a positive way. And when landscapes do that, as you know, when a photographer bothers to create an image of a landscape and it affects the viewer, then I feel they've gone a lot of the way to getting it right. But there was just a few technical things that stopped me from going to gold.
Thanks, Johan. Michelle, back to you, please.
Yep, and that's exactly right. We get just a silver with merit because of what it's giving me the field. I don't see it tilted down slightly. I think it's probably more the mountains. I did have a look to see whether it was straight. It is straight. It just gives you that feeling of warmth, but you're in a cold hole. It is serene and calm and pretty. And yes, there are technical difficulties, which is why we're going for a silver with merit. It really gave me the feels. It's got the blues and the warms, and I could just explore it for a long time. So I'd really like you to come up just a little bit and just give it a nice silver with merit.
Thanks, Michelle. Can we have the judges rescore, please? And we have a silver with merit at 85. Congratulations to the photographer. Can we have the next image, please? Thank you, judges. We have an initial score of 88 and we have a challenge by Will.
Yeah, I gave this is my highest scoring image. I gave this 91. For me, some of the points I've mentioned earlier, this one really checks those boxes. All I'm seeing here is a penguin. I'm sure that's what the intent is. So the fact that straight away there's something relatable when we look at an abstract image, I think that instantly gets extra points for me, because the everyday viewer is going to be able to interpret something. But then the more I look at it compositionally, I love where everything's been placed, but there's almost a sweeping motion throughout the whole image. Everything, it's almost like the penguin is walking into wind. If you look at the way the texture and flow of the image, there's a lot of, even on the orange on the lower left of the, let's call it the penguin, you can see that some of the orange is being flicked out. And then when you go up into the darks up the top, all those grains are also moving leftward. So I like that sense of movement, and it's just like the penguin's leaning into the wind. It's just kind of walking outwards there, and kind of tells a story of enduring the elements. And then, not to mention that there's still a three-dimensionality. If you look at the main pattern that runs across the frame and then downwards, those grays beautifully taper down. So there's a three-dimensional feel there, like that embossing that we mentioned in one of the earlier pieces. So all these factors combined, not to mention the striking orange, which just jumps off the gray and that real cool tone that's in the rest of the image. I really like everything that's going on. I'm just seeing now the top right-hand corner, there's another line that's just kind of cutting down. So I just feel like everything is flowing here, leading us to the right point. My eyes not drifting off into a vast open space too much. Three-dimensionality, texture, something that I can relate to. Yeah, I really like it. Fantastic. Even the shadow coming off the white in the center there. Ooh, really, really cool piece.
Thanks, Will. Chris Anderson, can we hear from you, please?
Well, I'm way down on 86, so I put this into silver with merit. Um, well, I think I kind of hunt for those relatable things too, and I found something slightly more violent and horrible. So where you see a penguin, I see a polar bear that's facing away from us that's just eaten a penguin and is covered with blood. So that's a bit horrible. And then I've kind of gone, do you know what? I don't think I need to interpret this as a real life thing. I'm absorbed by this exists in the world. That's incredible. I don't know what I'm looking at. I can't figure out what it is. There is that sense of motion. I think the science part of my brain wants to decode this and work out why are those orange lines there and what are we looking at? How do these waves work and what is this? And the art side of my brain is going, shut up. It doesn't really matter. It sits really nicely and it is enjoyable. I I don't. I think I was stingy on 86, and I'll be moving up.
Thanks, Chris. Johan, can we hear from you, please?
Perfect. I had my hand up, but it was off screen. Thank you, Will, for your interpretation. I gave it an 89, and there's no reason why I shouldn't have gone higher. And the thing that actually makes it work so incredibly well is the little line that you talked about that comes from the top right-hand corner and leads us to where we want to be. It's almost like this orange figure, if you want to call it a figure, give it a life, has been imposed over, as you say, a three-dimensional background to great effect, to absolutely outstanding effect. And I gave it an 89 because my head wanted to explain something and I couldn't find a way to do it. I'm going to avoid the penguin theme because that actually, for me, takes away the abstraction part. The abstraction is powerful on its own without a name. And it's stunning for what it is, the use of color, the use of contrast, the control, the depth, the complete detail through the whole image, no over blacks and no over whites. It's stunning. I gave it an 89 and I'm very happy to come up. Thanks for talking about it, Will.
Thank you. Simone, if you've got something to add to this, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I gave this an 86 and I am happy, yeah, exactly, really listening to you guys. I suppose just I was maybe just being a little bit of a snitchy little schoolmarm on the technicals, but just halfway up, I'll call it the back of the penguin, halfway up, there's just a little light kind of bright patch there. I don't know why the photographer just didn't take that away. And I almost wanted to breathe in a little bit more to the right. Because I felt this was just so square. It was just too much in the middle for me. I wanted more space to where the where my eye is being led to. But I'm happy to come to a low gold. Which I shouldn't say low gold. That sounds terrible. Sorry.
Thanks, Simone. Back to you, Will.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with having a little more room on the right-hand side, just because we are being led to the right and there's not much room when we get there. So I think, yeah, if it had that, I'd probably even go a little bit higher. I can't help but see the penguin here, the orange outline and the feet down the bottom. And I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. I thought it was clear as day. But anyway, for me, that actually, I like what you said, Johan, about not needing that figure. But for me, it's just so clear that it makes it more brilliant to me, even having the white chest, and it's just, so that just blows me away. But yeah, the three-dimensionality, I'm glad you guys have probably seen it in a slightly different light anyway. So thanks.
Thank you. Can we have the judges rescore, please? And Will, if you enter your 91. And we have a gold award at 91. Thank you so much. That is the end of the top 10 live judging. Huge congratulations to our top 10 finalists. Thank you to the entrants in the landscape category, and a massive thank you to our panel of judges today.